When we talk about peak performance, whether in cognitive tasks, athletic pursuits, or emotional resilience, there's one biological lever that often remains underappreciated, even though it's both powerful and entirely accessible: sleep. Not just the quantity of sleep, but the quality, timing, and consistency of it. Understanding how sleep regulates the brain and body systems is critical for unlocking our highest capacities. Sleep is not merely a passive state of unconsciousness. It's an active and highly orchestrated process that directly controls our ability to focus, learn, regulate emotions, heal, and grow. The human sleep cycle comprises several stages, including non-REM and REM phases, each serving different but complementary functions. Non-REM sleep, especially the slow-wave portion, is responsible for cellular repair, immune regulation, and memory consolidation. REM sleep is deeply tied to emotional processing, creativity, and motor skill learning. Disruption in any of these stages, due to stress late, night screen use, erratic schedules, or stimulant consumption, can lead to downstream consequences that impair not only how we feel, but how we perform across every domain. One of the first things to understand when optimizing sleep is the role of circadian rhythms. These internal biological clocks operate on roughly a 24-hour cycle and are deeply sensitive to light and temperature cues. Our primary circadian pacemaker, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, resides in the hypothalamus. It regulates the release of hormones such as cortisol and melatonin, which govern our alertness and sleepiness throughout the day and night. Morning sunlight exposure is the single most powerful lever for anchoring this rhythm. Getting natural sunlight within 30 to 60 minutes of waking triggers a cascade of neurochemical responses that promote wakefulness, while simultaneously setting a countdown timer for the onset of melatonin in release roughly 14 to 16 hours later. When people report issues falling asleep or staying asleep, they often overlook the influence of their morning behaviors. Delayed or insufficient light exposure upon waking, especially when combined with late-day artificial light, can desynchronize the circadian rhythm and delay sleep onset. Blue light emitted from phones, tablets, and screens can suppress melatonin in release if viewed in the hours before bedtime, sending the brain a signal that it is still daytime. To correct this, one must be intentional, reduce artificial light exposure at least 90 minutes before sleep, and if you must use devices, use them on night mode or with blue light filters. Another lever is temperature regulation. Sleep is intimately tied to thermoregulation. The body naturally drops its core temperature by 1 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate and maintain sleep. Facilitating that drop can dramatically improve sleep latency and depth. One way to do this is by taking a warm shower or bath 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. Although it may seem counterintuitive, the warm water actually causes vasodilation, expansion of blood vessels near the skin, which allows the body to offload heat more efficiently and drop core temperature more rapidly once you step out of the shower. Additionally, keeping the room temperature between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit and using breathable bedding can aid in maintaining that lowered temperature throughout the night. Nutrition and its timing also play pivotal roles in sleep quality. Consuming large meals close to bedtime can impair digestion and elevate core body temperature, both of which can interfere with sleep initiation. Alcohol and caffeine are two common disruptors. Caffeine blocks adenosine, a neuromodulator that builds up during wakefulness and creates sleep pressure. Even if consumed 6 to 8 hours before bedtime, caffeine can reduce the depth of slow-wave sleep. Similarly, while alcohol may help with falling asleep due to its sedative effects, it fragments sleep cycles and reduces REM sleep later in the night. Both substances, particularly if consumed in the second half of the day, can significantly impact sleep architecture and next-day performance. From a neurological perspective, one of the more profound effects of optimized sleep is on memory consolidation and learning. During deep non-REM sleep, the brain performs what might be called a data backup operation. Information acquired during the day, particularly emotionally neutral factual information, is transferred from the hippocampus, a kind of temporary storage site, to the neocortex for long-term retention. REM sleep, on the other hand, is heavily involved in the integration of emotional memories and pattern recognition. Individuals who are sleep-deprived show diminished activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center, and heightened activity in the amygdala, the center for fear and threat detection. This imbalance explains why sleep-deprived individuals are more reactive, less rational, and more prone to anxiety. For those pursuing cognitive excellence or athletic performance, sleep is not optional, it is essential. Reaction time, coordination, and fine motor skills all degrade with even modest sleep deprivation. Studies on athletes show that increasing sleep duration by even 1 hour per night can significantly improve sprint times, shooting accuracy, and endurance. Similarly, in the workplace or academic setting, sleep directly correlates with focus, creative problem solving, and emotional intelligence. There is no supplement, no shortcut that can compensate for sleep debt. Even so-called recovery sleep after deprivation does not restore performance to baseline levels immediately. One frequently overlooked aspect of sleep optimization is behavioral regularity. The brain craves predictability. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends, helps stabilize the circadian system and improve sleep efficiency. Irregular sleep schedules create what's known as social jet lag, where the internal clock is misaligned with external demands. This misalignment is associated with higher rates of metabolic dysfunction, mood disorders, and cognitive deficits. Simply maintaining a consistent wake-up time is one of the most powerful interventions for improving sleep quality. Physical movement, especially aerobic exercise, also impacts sleep quality, though timing is key. Exercise increases body temperature and elevates cortisol, which can be counterproductive if performed too close to bedtime. However, when done earlier in the day, ideally in the morning or early afternoon, it promotes deeper, more restorative sleep. In particular, exercise can increase the amount of time spent in slow wave sleep, the most restorative sleep stage. Resistance, training, and cardiovascular activities both confer benefits, but consistency and timing are more important than the specific modality. There is also a bidirectional relationship between stress and sleep. High levels of stress and chronic hyperarousal disrupt the transition into sleep by keeping the sympathetic nervous system activated. To counteract this, practices that shift the nervous system into a parasympathetic or rest and digest state can be highly effective. These include protocols like non-sleep deep rest NSDR, yoga nidra, and structured breathwork. For example, a simple 5-minute protocol of cyclic sighing, deep inhale followed by a longer, slow exhale, has been shown to reduce physiological arousal and facilitate the onset of sleep. Meditation and mindfulness practices, particularly when practiced regularly and not just at bedtime, can also buffer the effects of stress on sleep. In cases where sleep disturbances persist, supplementation may be considered, but with caution and specificity. Magnesium, threonate or bisglycinate, apigenin, and theanine have shown some promise in clinical studies for reducing sleep latency and improving sleep quality. However, these should be viewed as augmentative, not foundational. The behavioral protocols, light exposure, temperature regulation, consistent sleep timing, must be in place first. Melatonin can be effective in small doses 300 mcg or less for shifting circadian phase, particularly in cases of jet lag or shift work, but chronic use at higher doses may downregulate the brain's natural production over time. It's also worth noting that certain sleep disorders, such as sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or insomnia, require clinical evaluation. Sleep apnea in particular is underdiagnosed and can severely impact cardiovascular and cognitive health. If someone experiences persistent fatigue despite seemingly adequate sleep duration, or if a bed partner reports loud snoring or gasping during sleep, it's essential to consult a medical professional and consider a sleep study. For those working in high-demand, high-stakes environments, the temptation to sacrifice sleep for productivity is real. but the science is unequivocal. Reducing sleep undermines performance across a network. Error occurred. Please check your connection and try again. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at help.openeye.com. Adian pacemaker resides in a region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, which sits just above the roof of the mouth in the hypothalamus. This tiny but powerful structure governs the timing of virtually every physiological and psychological process we depend on daily. It determines when we feel alert, when we feel tired, when our body temperature rises or falls, and even when we release key hormones like cortisol and melatonin. To align this system with the natural rhythms of the day and night cycle, light exposure is the most potent regulator. Specifically, viewing sunlight within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up, especially if done outside, triggers a cascade of neurochemical and hormonal events that promote wakefulness during the day and set the stage for better sleep at night. This exposure helps suppress melatonin, a hormone that makes us sleepy, and boosts cortisol and dopamine levels, which increase alertness and motivation. Just 5 to 10 minutes of early morning sunlight can make a dramatic difference, and on cloudy days, staying outside a bit longer, perhaps 15 to 20 minutes, can achieve the same effect. Artificial indoor lighting simply does not provide the same photonic energy or wavelength specificity to entrain the circadian rhythm effectively. Equally important is avoiding bright artificial light, especially overhead and blue, enriched light, in the hours leading up to bedtime. Our eyes contain specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, which are not involved in vision but instead send signals to the SCN about light in our environment. These cells are most sensitive to blue light, such as that emitted from LED screens and modern indoor bulbs. Exposure to such light at night shifts the circadian rhythm, delays melatonin production, and makes it more difficult to fall and stay asleep. By dimming lights, using red spectrum bulbs, and avoiding screens in the 60 to 90 minutes before bed, you can preserve melatonin's natural rise and improve sleep onset and quality. Temperature also plays a vital role in sleep regulation. The body needs to drop by approximately 1 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit in core temperature to initiate sleep. This explains why taking a warm bath or shower before bed paradoxically helps cool the body. It increases blood flow to the skin's surface, causing heat to dissipate more efficiently. Ensuring that the sleep environment is slightly cool, ideally around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, can help facilitate this natural cooling process. Additionally, using breathable fabrics and avoiding heavy meals before bedtime can further support the body's thermoregulation mechanisms. Another major factor that influences sleep quality is timing consistency. The circadian system is incredibly responsive to regularity, waking up and going to sleep at the same time every day, even on week. It anchors the body's biological rhythms and enhances the depth and efficiency of sleep. Disruptions to this rhythm, such as staying up late and sleeping in, create what's known as social jet lag. This mismatch between biological time and social schedules mimics the effects of actual time's own travel and has been associated with mood disturbances, impaired glucose metabolism, and reduced cognitive function. If consistent timing isn't always feasible, anchoring your wake-up time is more important than anchoring your bedtime, because the timing of waking is what sets the start of the next circadian cycle. The neurochemical landscape of sleep is equally fascinating and essential to understand. Adenosine is a molecule that builds up in the brain throughout the day and creates what's known as sleep pressure. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine accumulates, making you feel sleepy. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors, which explains why it can help you feel more alert. However, because it doesn't eliminate adenosine but rather masks it, caffeine consumed too late in the day can interfere with the natural sleep drive and disrupt nighttime sleep. Given caffeine's half-life of around 5 to 6 hours, it's advisable to avoid caffeine intake after about 2 p.m. or even earlier for those more sensitive. Physical movement also impacts sleep quality, largely through its effects on body temperature and neurochemistry. Engaging in regular physical activity has been shown to deepen slow-wave sleep and increase overall sleep efficiency. However, the timing of exercise matters. Intense workouts close to bedtime can raise core body temperature and adrenaline levels, potentially delaying sleep onset. Ideally, moderate to vigorous exercise should be completed at least 3 hours before bedtime, though gentle stretching or yoga in the evening can have calming effects and aid in the transition to sleep. Nutrition and meal timing are also key levers in the sleep optimization equation. Eating a large meal late at night can interfere with sleep by diverting energy to digestion and raising body temperature. Conversely, going to bed hungry can also disrupt sleep, particularly if blood glucose levels drop too low. A balanced approach involves finishing your last meal 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Foods that are rich in magnesium, tryptophan, and complex carbohydrates can support the production of serotonin and melatonin, both of which are important for sleep initiation and maintenance. Supplementation can be useful, but only after foundational behaviors are in place. Melatonin, while widely used, is a hormone and should be approached with caution, in low doses, typically 0. 3 to 1 mg it can help shift sleep timing, especially when adjusting to a new time zone or correcting a delayed sleep phase. However, regular use is not recommended for long-term sleep improvement unless advised by a medical professional. Other compounds like magnesium threonate, apigenin, and theanine have shown promise in supporting sleep through their effects on GABA and other calming neurotransmitters. Still, none of these should be considered substitutes for behavioral alignment with circadian biology. Stress management is another critical, often overlooked factor. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, naturally peaks in the morning and declines throughout the day. However, chronic stress, poor emotional regulation, or constant stimulation, whether from work demands or digital devices, can cause cortisol to remain elevated in the evening. This high arousal state not only makes it harder to fall asleep, but also interferes with the depth and restorative quality of sleep. Practices such as diaphragmatic breathing, mindfulness meditation, and writing down a to-do list before bed have been shown to reduce pre-sleep cognitive arousal and facilitate quicker sleep onset. The role of naps also deserves attention. While napping can be beneficial, especially for those experiencing sleep debt, it's important to do it strategically. Naps that are too long or taken too late in the day can interfere with nighttime sleep. Short naps of 10 to 20 minutes can provide a boost in alertness and cognitive function without entering deep sleep and disrupting the subsequent night's rest. Longer naps of 60 to 90 minutes, which include both non-REM and REM sleep, can be restorative but should be reserved for when sleep debt is high and must be taken earlier in the day, ideally before 3 p.m. Sleep is also intimately connected to memory consolidation and learning. During slow wave sleep, the hippocampus replays recent experiences and transfers them to the neocortex for long-term storage, a process known as memory consolidation. REM sleep, in contrast, is thought to support the integration of emotional memories and the abstraction of knowledge into creative insights. This is why learning new material or training a new skill is most effectively followed by a good night of sleep. Without sufficient sleep, the brain's ability to encode, consolidate, and retrieve information is markedly impaired, regardless of how much effort was put into the learning during wakefulness. Another fascinating area of sleep science involves glymphatic clearance. During sleep, particularly slow-wave sleep, the brain's interstitial space expands and cerebrospinal fluid flows more freely, flushing out metabolic waste products such as beta, amyloid, and tau proteins. These are the same substances that, when accumulated excessively, are associated with neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease. Thus, sleep is not just a passive state, it's a critical time for maintenance and detoxification of the brain. Chronic sleep deprivation impairs this clearance process and increases long-term risk for cognitive decline. The connection between sleep and immunity is also strong. Even partial sleep deprivation, getting 6 hours instead of 8, can reduce the activity of natural killer cells by up to 70%. These are the cells that detect and destroy virally infected and cancerous cells, Regular, high-quality sleep bolsters immune resilience, enhances vaccine efficacy, and reduces susceptibility to colds. A network error occurred. Please check your connection and try again. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at help@openeye.com. Building on that foundation, it's essential to recognize that optimizing sleep isn't just about the quantity of time spent in bed, but more about the quality of the sleep architecture across the night. Sleep is composed of distinct stages: light sleep, deep slow wave sleep, also called non-REM stage 3, and rapid eye movement REM sleep. Each of these stages plays a unique and vital role in restoring and supporting the brain and body. The early part of the night is predominantly occupied by deep sleep, which is critical for physical restoration, immune function, and the release of growth hormone. As the night progresses, REM sleep takes over, playing a critical role in creativity, emotional processing, and memory integration. Disruptions to these cycles, whether from alcohol, poor sleep hygiene, inconsistent schedules, or underlying disorders, degrade the integrity of these processes and reduce overall performance across all domains. Alcohol, often misunderstood as a sleep aid, is in fact one of the most disruptive substances for sleep. While it may induce drowsiness and accelerate sleep onset, it fragments sleep, reduces REM sleep significantly, and can lead to frequent awakenings that go unnoticed but leave a person feeling unrefreshed. Moreover, alcohol suppresses melatonin in release and can interfere with core body temperature regulation, both of which are crucial for sleep onset and maintenance. Even small to moderate amounts of alcohol, especially within a few hours of bedtime, can dramatically reduce the restorative quality of sleep and impair cognitive performance the following day. Over time, regular consumption close to bedtime has been linked to chronic insomnia and increased risk for sleep apnea. Sleep disorders like insomnia and sleep apnea deserve special attention. Insomnia, characterized by difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking up too early, often arises from a combination of physiological hyperarousal, poor sleep habits, and psychological factors like anxiety or racing thoughts. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia (CBT) remains the gold standard treatment, focusing on restructuring thought patterns, improving sleep-related behaviors, and removing unhelpful associations with sleep. Unlike medication, CBT produces long-term results without the risk of dependence or side effects. Sleep apnea, on the other hand, is a physical obstruction of the airway during sleep that causes intermittent breathing pauses, frequent awakenings, and reduced oxygen saturation. Undiagnosed and untreated sleep apnea significantly increases the risk for cardiovascular disease, stroke, insulin resistance, and cognitive decline. Fortunately, it is highly treatable with interventions ranging from CPAP machines to lifestyle modifications like weight loss and positional therapy. Understanding the bidirectional relationship between sleep and mental health is also crucial. Depression, anxiety, PTSD, and other mood-related conditions often coincide with disrupted sleep. But the relationship doesn't just go one way. Sleep deprivation can trigger and exacerbate these disorders. In fact, in many cases, improving sleep can be the most effective and fastest-acting intervention for stabilizing mood and emotional resilience. Sleep enhances the function of the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which plays a pivotal role in modulating the amygdala and maintaining emotional equilibrium. When sleep is compromised, the brain becomes more reactive, less capable of evaluating emotional inputs rationally, and more prone to rumination and catastrophic thinking. This is why sleep is increasingly being recognized not just as a symptom of mental health conditions, but as a cause and a potential treatment pathway. From the standpoint of peak physical performance, sleep is the ultimate recovery tool. During deep non-REM sleep, the body undergoes protein synthesis, muscle repair, and the release of growth hormone. Athletes who prioritize sleep experience improved reaction time, reduced injury rates, faster recovery, and greater strength and endurance. Even a single night of sleep deprivation can reduce aerobic capacity, impair glucose metabolism in muscle cells, and alter pain thresholds. Studies have shown that extending sleep by just 1 hour per night over the course of a few weeks can lead to measurable gains in sprint times, shooting accuracy, and performance consistency in elite athletes. Conversely, overtraining without adequate sleep recovery leads to elevated cortisol levels, suppressed testosterone, increased inflammation, and ultimately burnout or regression in performance. Sleep also directly impacts the endocrine system and metabolic health. Leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, and ghrelin, the hormone that signals hunger, are both modulated by sleep. When sleep is restricted, leptin decreases while ghrelin increases, leading to increased appetite, particularly for high-carbohydrate, high-fat foods. This creates a vicious cycle where poor sleep drives poor eating behavior, which in turn disrupts glucose metabolism and contributes to weight gain. Moreover, chronic sleep loss reduces insulin sensitivity, setting the stage for pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. One night of poor sleep can mimic the insulin resistance of someone with full-blown diabetes, and these effects accumulate over time. That is why sleep must be seen not just as a contributor to body weight regulation, but as a central determinant of metabolic health. The immune system is another area profoundly influenced by sleep. During sleep, especially slow-wave sleep, there is an upregulation of immune function, including increased production of cytokines, natural killer cells, and other immune regulators. Vaccines are significantly more effective when the individual is well rested. For example, people who are sleep-deprived around the time of receiving a flu vaccine produce fewer antibodies and show a lower immune response. Sleep enhances the communication between the nervous and immune systems, creating an integrated defense mechanism against illness and infection. Sleep deprivation, by contrast, increases inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, making the body more susceptible to both chronic diseases and acute infections. Creativity, intuition, and abstract problem-solving also flourish when sleep is optimized. REM sleep is particularly important for these domains as it facilitates the blending of disparate pieces of information and enhances associative thinking. Studies in cognitive neuroscience have shown that people who are allowed to sleep after learning a difficult or novel concept are significantly more likely to find creative solutions to problems compared to those who stay awake. The dreaming brain, operating in REM sleep, makes unusual connections and rehearses scenarios in a way that is biologically designed to simulate and prepare for real-life challenges. This is not random firing or passive mental activity. It is a sophisticated and evolutionarily developed training mechanism that allows the brain to rehearse for emotional, social, and strategic complexity. Decision-making is another high-level cognitive domain that benefits tremendously from high-quality sleep. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logical reasoning, long-term planning, and impulse control, is particularly sensitive to sleep deprivation. When sleep is restricted, the prefrontal cortex's activity decreases while the limbic system, associated with emotional reactivity, increases. This results in a tilt toward short-term, emotionally driven decisions rather than rational, long-term thinking. In high-stakes environments, whether in medicine, law enforcement, finance, or leadership, the ability to make sound, ethical, and forward-thinking decisions hinges directly on the integrity of sleep. Leaders who do not prioritize their own sleep or model it for their teams are not just risking burnout. They are increasing the likelihood of mistakes, misjudgments, and poor performance outcomes. Technology use is another modern factor that has significantly altered sleep patterns across the population. Smartphones, social media, streaming platforms, and 24/7 access to stimulation have created what sleep researchers refer to as a sleep procrastination epidemic. Many people delay bedtime not because they're physically unable to sleep, but because they are choosing to engage in high-stimulation, dopamine, releasing behaviors late into the night. This disrupts the natural wind-down process, keeps the brain in a state of arousal, and further delays melatonin in release. One solution is to implement what's called a digital sunset, an intentional cutoff time each night, ideally 60 to 90 minutes before bed, when all screens are turned off or replaced with low-stimulation activities like reading, journaling, or listening to calming audio. These behaviors support the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the relaxation response necessary for initiating sleep. Social factors and cultural expectations also play a role in sleep behavior. In many societies, especially high-performance work cultures, sleep is mistakenly viewed as a weakness or an expendable luxury. This mindset is both scientifically inaccurate and dangerous. Sleep is not something to be sacrificed in order to succeed if a network error occurred. Please check your connection and try again. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at help@openeye.com. In conclusion, sleep is not a passive state we fall into, but an active, highly orchestrated biological process that underpins nearly every function required for peak mental and physical performance. It is the foundation upon which attention, memory, emotional regulation, creativity, metabolic health, immune defense, and physical recovery are built. Optimizing sleep isn't about perfection. It's about consistent, intentional habits that respect the body's natural rhythms and biology. Whether you're striving to excel in your career, improve your athletic ability, enhance your relationships, or simply show up as your best self, sleep is the most powerful, accessible, and underutilized tool available. Commit to it as seriously as you do to your goals, because without sufficient, high-quality sleep, even the best strategies will fall short. But with it, your mind sharpens, your body strengthens, and your potential across every domain expands.